Yeah, what's up, man?
Not much. How you doing?
Good. I called the ombudsman's office.
Oh yeah, you're on speaker now, so mind your p's and q's a little bit.
Oh, okay. I'm usually better than that than you are.
Uh,
Maybe
I'm the
not.
one that's bad at that.
Yeah, Audra's terrible. She's like the sailor mouth around
Yeah,
here.
I'm a pirate.
Into Shirk.
no, I'm talking to David Sparks
What's up, bro?
for Obama.
So yeah, I called the ACLU to left them a message.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you'd think they'd be staffing that place and taking calls because they're losing.
Yeah. Well, it takes money.
Yeah,
But yeah, I called him, told him my situation, being kicked off or asked to leave campus, which I did. You know. And that I was also a student and it was a public area, yada yada yada. And I keep
right.
running into this situation as a journalist, where they're not allowing me to do things that they would allow people to do other things as other speech related things.
Yeah. So what did the ombudsman's office say? Did they say we'll take notes and call you back?
Yeah, basically, they're gonna look into the situation. I said, I wasn't doing anything that was against anything in the student handbook.
Right.
There was no rule violations but the officer wanted my
Oh yeah, that there's a distinct difference between the rules of the handbook and the policy of the security.
Yeah. And she said. What did she say? Oh, I told him. I told her that the officers asked for my ID, and I told them my name, but I didn't feel like I needed to give them my ID because I wasn't breaking any of the rules.
Well, but I think the failure to identify is
No, but I did identify. I identified myself. I told them my name.
Okay.
But. And it says in the student rule book that you have to identify yourself. It doesn't say you have to identify yourself with,
Right.
anything. Plus, like I said, I wasn't breaking any kind of rules. I had no reason, any reasonable reason to be descended upon. I'm not doing anything. If I was, all they had to do was ask me, "Hey, what are you doing?" Yeah, man on the street reporting. You want to answer a question?
Right.
That's it. Big deal. Innocuous acts. 20 years ago, here's another thing. 20 years ago, no one would have said a thing to me. It would just been some dude with a camera. Oh, I wonder what the dude with the camera's doing.
Yeah. I want to get on film.
Yeah, I'm putting images to to a medium.
Well, it's just, it's this whole, I don't know what you call it. The slap and stance of things. Like, it's the kind of, knee-jerk reaction to potential threat. I mean, it really is. It is what it is. It's Minority Report. It's the same thing that they're doing psychologically at the national level with that whole unlimited detention thing.
Yeah, it is psychological intimidation. Basically.
Well, I mean, that's what they're essentially saying. They're like, sure. The indefinite detention thing is essentially thought crime. It's essentially saying, we can't let you out because you might commit a crime against us.
Yeah.
And without trial, without charging them, that whole thing is bizarre.
Sure,
I think
that was one of the questions I was asking people.
He said, I need to understand something. He's like, you folks have to understand it's not indefinite detention because the people being detained will eventually die.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sorry, I don't know. And at this level, it's every security officer for itself. And the thing is that there's this risen the level of doubt about the security and stability of the institution, whatever that institution is in the generic sense, has risen.
Oh yeah.
To a point of feeling as if anything that changes is a threat.
Yeah.
And this goes completely coincides with and joins up with the notion of the right-wing propaganda machine. And I'm not even saying what the message is of the machine. I'm saying that this is symptomatic of the mechanics of the machine, because they've built into that Republican thing this like anachronistic view of hold the phone, don't go further, don't be progressive, don't change things, go back to the way it was.
Yeah.
And so anything that even smells like change is now being labeled as an insurrection or counterintuitive to the normal process. And the normal process is being controlled by top-down policies in almost every particular branch of government and you know, in almost every particular branch of local behavior in profit and non-profit institutions.
Sure. You know, but here, ultimately they're going to, aren't they going to lead to a point, this is something as a veteran, I've talked to a lot of other veterans, you know, and after you've been through all that stuff, I wouldn't protect these people, knowing what I know now. And
it's like that beautiful video of that sergeant, that huge guy, he's African-American guy, huge dude, like chasing, like bearing down on the cops.
Yeah, that's not honorable. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy, right? The guy that's like, this is not honorable. He's like, you can't beat unarmed people. You know.
Sure.
There's no honor in that. He shut them down a little bit. You know.
Sure.
I mean, not completely, and obviously they just kind of like let him rail and didn't. I don't think any of those guys wanted to mess with him. He's like 6'6" and you know, all 300 pounds of muscle or whatever. Yeah. But. You know, I mean, yeah, I don't even know if he would have been violent or if he'd have just gone quietly if they'd have said, like, you have crossed the line and you will be arrested now. I don't know. But it doesn't really matter, because if something like, I mean, you know, and there's two schools of thought on the Occupy movement. If the Occupy movement is successful, it's successful in that it changed the national dialogue. You know, and they're not done yet. They're just not doing it through occupancy yet, right now.
No, I think that was all a warm-up.
Yeah, and you know, and I don't know who is controlling the message behind the things that Anonymous is saying, but they are changing the dialogue about, you know, the wealthiest 1% and and that whole thing about the, you know, the parasitic nature of the wealthy.
Yeah, and
you know, I mean, so I don't know. I think that. It's interesting, you know, if you look at the campaign promises of Obama from Iowa last election cycle, he's done 3 out of the 3 things he said he was going to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, and yes, there were some things that are strange now. I mean, the indefinite detention signing is kind of weird. And saying that his administration will not pursue that, you know. Basically, you know, I mean, Stephen Colbert made a point about it. He's like, we won't pursue it, so you better reelect us. You know, kind of thing. Like, that's kind of, I mean, it's funny.
Because Newt Gingrich will.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly.
Or, you know, Mitt Romney will.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And I don't know why they put that in law. I think he should have vetoed that. I think that was a bad call on his part.
Oh, yeah, it's a horrendous call, you know. Well, that's like, you know, it's going back to this whole point, and I think...
But just letting it happen and then not getting out in front of it and explaining why ideologically he had to.
Well, it gets back to this point then, you know, you're seeing a lot of... I think I saw, you know, in Dayton, quite a few of the Occupy people, or at least some of them were drawn to the some of the bigger protests, were veterans. And,
well, yeah,
and even in recent ones, it brings up the question: is America worth defending?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so the ombudsman's office said what?
Well, you know, I told her about the incident. You know, I said, you know, I wasn't doing anything. I hadn't even, you know, completely set up my camera. You know, still doing like checks on, you know, different stuff.
Yeah,
and when they asked me to leave, I immediately said, you know, okay. I said, you know, but I asked them, I asked the officers, I said, does this policy trump the First Amendment. And they couldn't answer that question. They just stood stone-faced. And so, so I said, I'm not going to argue with you guys. I'm going to leave. Go over here on the sidewalk.
Well, I mean, the next question that you ask them is, if you don't have an answer for that question, do you understand that it's your duty to uphold the Constitution above all other laws?
Yeah, well,
even if it doesn't affect them to say it,
I wasn't thinking.
Own consciousness. You need to know that they heard it.
Sure.
Because there is this policy among security forces to violate the Fourth Amendment to make sure that the state welfare powers are enforced.
Yeah.
Safety, health, welfare, and morals somehow, in their justification or interpretation of what that means, even though that falls under the umbrella of the Constitution last time I checked, that they believe that they can enforce those powers regardless of whether they consider the Constitution or not in every moment of their day. And, like I said, go talk to the police. Go talk to them about search and seizure law.
Mm-hmm.
Cops don't believe in the Fourth Amendment.
No.
They don't uphold it. They think that the Fourth Amendment ties their hands.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Fourth Amendment. It's just as strong as the First Amendment. I mean, that's the thing I think people fail to understand. An amendment is an amendment is an amendment. If it's the Fourth Amendment or the First Amendment, it's the same in the sense of how you should enforce it and with what vigilance you should enforce it.
Yeah, so what should I do? I'm kind of thinking.
Go down there and set up your camera.
What's that?
Go back down there and set up your camera.
Well, I'm waiting for them to give me a call back and see what they have to say, because I have, I have that.
Now that they've given you notice that you need a permit.
What's that?
Now that they've given you notice that you need a permit, I don't know whether you need a permit or not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether that's legal for them to tell you to have a permit, but.
Yeah, well, according there's no that behavior is not a violation of any rule in the student handbook. Setting up a
right, but I'm saying
camera.
You already know what your rules are as press because you have press credentials, right?
From who?
From yourself. Doesn't matter. Whatever. You're press. You have a forum for information and you gather information.
Yeah.
You have the right to have press.
Yeah.
Whether or not you have press credentials for a particular event or not is a different story.
Yeah.
And there are channels for doing that. That's a setup thing.
Yeah.
But even at the tallest level, even in the White House press briefing room, there's a pecking order.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is a little bit disturbing. That kind of offhanded kind of, we're putting Fox News at the back of the room every day.
Yeah.
In a liberal thing, and we're putting them in the front of the room in a Republican regime.
Yeah.
That kind of shuffling, to me, is the worst kind of indication of what's going on in the media right now, and what's going on with politicians and their attitude towards. Because I think that the sense of history is missing from a lot of people's behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we have, and I think it was Colin Powell or Schwarzkopf, when France was doing that thing where they were bowing out of being a part of the coalition of the willing or something.
Yeah.
And they said, they wouldn't let them move their troops over French airspace or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the French had put out this public policy of this is just an American land grab. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys who was the head of, I can't remember if it was the first Iraq War or the second Iraq War, but one of the heads, it was either Colin Powell or Schwarzkopf, said, the only land we ever asked for from France was enough room to bury our dead. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a really good, solid, because it was very quickly said, and it was offhand, but it was totally true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that kind of sense of history of being able to close the argument. And that's the thing that I think that, when it comes down to it, what's happening now with the media and with politicians is that there's this psychological doublespeak that's going on everywhere. It's rampant in everything that's going on.
Yeah.
there's no accountability for the truth anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth-saying people have been marginalized by one group or another.
Yeah.
And that's being taught by people like the politicians who are doing it, who are just saying one thing and doing another.
Mm-hmm.
Politicians who are making deals to cross the party line and then accusing the people they're making the deals with of colluding with the wrong party. You know, because, I mean, everybody votes against their own interest. That stuff they come out with when they vote is like, you know, you're a flip-flopper because you voted for it before you voted against it. You know, all these things. There are always reasons why that happens. I make concessions on this particular bill because I know that we're going to win on this particular bill and we're going to change that law back to the way it should be.
Yeah.
You know, so I make I don't know what's it called, a paper tiger or something like that, where it's like, you know, I mean, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but, you know, where you know that the promise that you're making is not as valuable as they think it is, and then you turn around and fix the situation another time. So, you know, when you're talking about local politics, you know, it's even worse because there's less of a sense of what the right thing to do is and what the wrong thing to do is because you're being influenced by people who are catering to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and that's, I mean, you know, and I'm not saying that local politics are corrupt. I'm not saying that Sinclair is corrupt. I'm just saying that they've been acting in an environment that is so jacked up from what is the real conscientious way of living that they believe that their behavior reflects the policy of the handbook, even where it doesn't.
Sure.
You know? I mean, it's like that whole thing about the statistics of the dead. Like, they come out with the statistics of the dead from the war.
Mm-hmm.
It's Republicans, you know, when I was in law school, I was talking to these Republicans, and I was like, all right, well, let's not talk about the Iraq War, because that's emotional and right up front. Let's just talk about the Vietnam War. How many people died there? And they're like, what was it, 50-some thousand, and then some other number of POWs, MIAs?
That would be American numbers.
It's like, yeah, that's the American casualties. How many people died in the war?
Millions.
Like 55,000. And I was like, try over 2 million. And they're like, oh, you're talking about the Vietnamese. And I was like, were they a part of the war? It wasn't their country. Mm-hmm. You know, they lost, if we talk about tragic loss, but they lost 2 million people.
Mm-hmm.
Lost less than 100,000 total of destroyed families and dead.
Yeah, that would be like 2 million people. What state has around 2 million people? Like Arkansas?
Yeah, whatever. I mean, like, yeah, it'd be like the whole state of Arkansas.
Everyone in the state of Arkansas wiped out, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, it's just, and not only that, but it is like entire cities.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's an entire city of Hanoi or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it is like there are now, if there were 3 million people in Hanoi, there are now 1 million people in Hanoi.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so every third person, every 2 out of 3 people is dead. You know, I'm not saying that they're all from Hanoi, but you know, I'm saying the perspective of what's going on in Iraq. You know, when I was in law school, it was already up over 300,000.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but they don't talk about those numbers anymore, and they don't talk about the fact that, like, I mean, like when we were in law school, they were really talking about the fact that, I mean, the people that were progressive about it were saying we're creating more enemies here.
Oh, we're creating
generations of vengeful people.
We're creating inner enemies as well. You know, big time. I mean,
and that's
millions of disillusioned people.
Yeah, and the seed of subordination has definitely been sown here as well. And I think that's what people are feeling. They're feeling like, you know, so like the zombie apocalypse and the hardcore preparers, they're not looking too crazy anymore because, like, natural disaster is one thing. You know, being invaded by another country, I don't see that happening in America too often.
Too many people with guns here.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a horrible image for us. We're safe because everybody's a gun nut.
Mm-hmm.
Not we're safe because everybody likes us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're safe because this is the place to be. It's not anymore, and I think that's what you were saying, and I think I agree with you.
Yeah, because, you know, if you can't have the basic freedom
Yeah.
You know, to go out with something as innocuous as a camera. You know,
Yeah.
a camera cannot project power, or it can't do anything but capture. You know.
Right, but that's the thing, is that people, the institutions are now acting as if it's going to capture their soul. You know,
But
they're
do we
really
not need
thinking
to
that it's going to define them in some.
Don't we need to capture their souls to make our? Don't we all need to be in a soul capturing mode in order to to better
it's not a
better
perfect
ourselves
system.
in whatever we do and whatever mode of life we're talking about?
Yeah, I got to run and take Pierce to Victoria Theater, but it's not a perfect system in the fact that. But here's what a camera does: it audits.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, I always felt like, they say the camera adds 30 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever they say.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't just add that.
Mm-hmm.
It exposes what you are unaware that you're not hiding or you're not dealing with or you're not taking care of.